Well, hello, folks. I'm Joe Wesley, and this lady's name is.
Robin
That's for you, Robin.
Shatzkin.
Thank you. We signing on a little bit early, and thank you for your early birds. Much more informal. I'd like to emphasize this is non-rehearsed. It's not scripted. Mistakes may happen because that's the action of a live program, but I think it's also the excitement of it. So the purpose of today, in part, is taking the challenge of your hot seat. And why do I say it's a challenge? Because many people I've met, they want more for their business, but they're not prepared to do more for their business, and not even more, perhaps even better. And as one lady said to me, she's not comfortable expressing herself. She's a very private person. And I have no argument there. But if you're going to be able to offer people true value unique to you, then it would be nice to have a sense of what it is. I'm sure many of you do already. But most people I've met struggle with how to determine their differentiator from their competition. And my role is I don't claim that I see dead people, but I will see things about you you've yet to discover about yourself that gives you an enhanced value in your business over your competition. And I call that your secret sauce. So, my purpose here is in a 30-minute period, we're going to spend the first 20 minutes talking about the person. In this instance, it's Robin. And in the last 10 minutes, we'll talk about your persona, your karma, and how it adds unique value to your business. Now, understand, this is a 30-minute program. So I'll give you one point of who you are, your secret sauce. It won't be an expanded version of it. I could be completely wrong about what I'm talking about here. So we'll find out how good I am or how good I'm not as we have our dialogue. So, Robin, thank you for showing up with us. I do appreciate that. And I'm looking at, let me see, I'm breaking my thought point. Not everybody is up to taking their challenge. And if you're trying something new, you're trying to grow, what you didn't do yesterday or 5 minutes ago, likely it will be a challenge. And what I found is that people who are not necessarily up to the challenge all the time, but more than their competition has a distinct advantage over their competitors. So taking a hot seat challenge is for me to show my style, for me to show the style or discover the style of my audience. And from into this, we should both look better in your eyes or a lot worse. First off, she will never look worse because I'm the one that really has the challenge here. It's an opportunity for Robin to learn more about yourself that perhaps she didn't know. And we'll see how that works. So I'd like to remind you before the fact, because we do go into our formal program on the hour, is that any comments you'd like to make, we would appreciate that, good, bad, or indifferent. We do audit the input through your YouTube, through your LinkedIn, through your Facebook accounts. When they're posted, I get notification. For those who would like to have more information, there's a link below. For those who would like to know more about who Robin is as a business owner, that will be in the links below also. So we encourage you to share us with your friends. You can look at this later. The rerun is available to you. And let us know what you think. Let your friends and business associates know what you think. So we're a little bit early, but I think I'm tired of rambling. So we're going to start. Welcome, folks, to the Take Your Hot Seat Challenge. When I spoke with Robin about this concept, she says, yes, I'd like to do that. And I start off by asking, Robin, what's your favorite pastime?
My favorite pastime. It's well, I think that to answer that, we would be here much longer than a half hour. But if I have to say right off the top of my head, my favorite pastime is just creating
Okay.
something that wasn't there before.
So, are you an artist, or you draw? Rephrase that. Anybody can be an artist in any denomination if you're creating something. Do you have a favorite niche or atmosphere or ambiance, and to
Um, you
manifest
know,
this creativity?
yeah, I think that um, because I've spent so much time doing things that are not tangible, creating something, whether it be knitting or felting or creating something that wasn't ever there before that would be uniquely mine.
Okay. So you do knit then, or you
I
have
do, I
knitted?
do.
Oh, interesting. Now, do you do it for creativity, for relaxation, for distraction? Is there a mindset when you get into it?
Originally, I started doing it for warmth, to create, sweaters and scarves. And then as the time went on, um, I fell in love with a particular fiber
Right,
and started going on a search for more and better. And I ended up buying the animals that created the fiber so that I could control the actual the color and the thickness and the feel of it. And I
right.
was actually taking things from the animal all the way to the wearability. So
Okay.
it became literally a creation from start to finish.
That's interesting. Now, has that been refined or changed or modified? How long have you been knitting for?
It's so think I've been knitting since maybe 11 or 12.
Okay.
Um, and it turned out to be something that I did with my grandmother and then I did with my aunt together. So it
Right,
started off being something passed down,
right,
and then it became something that for the first time in my creative life, I was able to say, look, I made this, because my other talent had always been music or performing. And it was something that was an active participation. And
right.
this was the very first time in my life that I had something tangible that I could be proud of saying, oh, I love your scarf. Well, thank you very much. I made it. It was a new experience for me.
All right. That's interesting. And are you basically still sweaters and scarves, if I heard correctly, or is there anything you've added to that?
Oh, no, no, no. I have gone from that. I have made scarves and jackets and sweaters and coats.
Oh
I've
my.
done socks, um,
Nice.
and I've done everything that I possibly can. I've won Judges' Choice Awards for scarves and jackets that I've knit. Um, and now I find myself going from the real bulky, heavy things that I knit when I started, because it was immediate gratification,
Right.
to shawls and lighter weight things, because the things that I knit at the beginning are just too warm. I can't wear anything that heavy anymore. Just change signs of the times.
Okay, I get that. I'm writing, folks. I'm a slow writer.
No worry.
How often is it a set time of the day that you knit, or is it your mind is
Um,
disconfabulated? You're hyped up. You need to relax down, or let me do this because I enjoy doing it as part of your normal lifestyle.
well, it's interesting that you ask that, because number one, I used to knit to get a project finished so that I can start the next one. So
Okay.
it was whenever I found the time to do it. Now, I can really only knit with daylight. I'm finding
R-
that my brain and my eyes are better when I have
r-
natural light.
Right.
And depending upon what I'm knitting, I have to do it in the winter because it's too I, it, the project in my hands becomes too warm. So it's definitely changing as I'm changing, but I'm
Right.
finding now more the things that I'm knitting are more art for me than function. It used
Okay.
to be a sweater or something that it could keep me warm. Now I look at a project as to how it can almost accessorize something else. I wear a lot of black, as you know, so a
Right.
pop of color, whether it's a color that's fascinating me or the intricacy of a new pattern.
Hmm.
Um, One of the things when you've been doing something for so long is the potential for either monotony or boredom. And I never
Fair.
wanted that. And one of the promises that I made to myself quite a while ago is no matter what I have on my needles or in my hand, I want to learn something new each time I create a project.
Right.
Whether it's a new way to put the stitches on the needle, whether it's a new stitch, um, whether it's a new pattern, because it helps me stay interested in what I'm doing. Otherwise, it becomes very and it becomes kind of rote, and you're not
Okay.
connected. You're not connected with it.
Right. I hear that. That is, geez, that's quite a bit. Folks, what I do is I take notes where I keep looking down, and you're not going to see it, but even I have to go to the back sheet of it. A lot of information, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I'm fairly complicated. You didn't think that this was going to be such an easy job, right?
Well, what she's referring to is that when we first off, and each person's different, has different value, but that's part of the secret sauce phenomenon. I'm not giving quite a conclusion yet, but an observation. Normally, I get on about 5 minutes before. And when Robin and I had our talk about when to start, I said, well, I'll do it about 10 or 15 minutes because I'm away from my home base. I have my laptop, I have makeshift items. And also, we have sometimes people who want to sign on early because that's who they are. And one person in panic, 30 seconds before the hour, texts my guest and says, I can't get on. Am I in the wrong place or not? So the program now is to start 10 to 15 minutes early to get on together. We don't necessarily start our program until the hour, but we have some pre-dialogue. Well, 20 minutes before we were to start, Robin says, hey, I'm available. I'm ready. When can I get on? And I'm laughing because I'm learning this stuff also. This is, and I'm enjoying it. The concept being that, and we had some glitches getting started. I'll say it like that, but we worked through it. And so here we are now. And I never know about how it's going to turn out, the program or the dialogue, because we deliberately do not rehearse. I do not have a prompt. Don't send me any questions you want me to ask you. That's not where I am on this. I really want it to be spontaneous at my risk, but at your gain, and also at the gain of Robin. So that's what she was referring to. We did talk briefly, now in all fairness, Robin did ask, what should she emphasize? Because she has two primary interests. And I says, well, you choose whatever you want, and I'll go with the flow of it. And it may well be more than one item of your favorite pastime. So I think you alluded to the fact that you had another pastime, plan B, or is knitting your primary focus?
I think that the when you ask something about a pastime, I think as we get older or as more and more interests come our way,
Right,
uh, they, there are multiple things that I enjoy doing as far as a
okay,
pastime. Now, when you ask that question, of course, you totally assume that I have all this free time sitting around, to be able to focus on that.
right,
And I chose the knitting only because it's a, no pun intended, it's been a thread going through a lot of the things that I've done.
right.
And something that was totally different than my everyday.
Okay,
And because there are many pastimes that I have that I include in my regular day, so
right.
those don't really count as something that I do in my spare time.
Okay, fair enough. When I talk about asking the first 20 minutes of your who you are, your favorite pastime, it's then the last 10 minutes in terms of business. I found that sequence doesn't work. That each of the guests I've had to date have been so intriguingly valued by my observation. I said, well, let's get into the other part of this dialogue. Oh, one more question. When you're looking at your knitting and you say the drive to be different, to be unique, do you look at magazines or that come out in the book stand, or do you look on the internet for different designs as examples? I think you alluded to that as being a yes. Or is it something that you wake up in the middle of the night and says, I thought of an idea, I got to do this?
Usually it's because either, and I wish it was that deep. And when
Right.
you're a beginner, you go to a knitting store and you look at what everybody else is doing, and oh my God, I have to have that. Oh my God, I have to have that.
Right.
Because I've been so involved in the actual process of creating the yarn, um, a lot of it is what it speaks to or what I need. If you have a heavy yarn, you're going to make something for warmth. When you have a very fine yarn, um, it takes a lot longer to create something. So
Right.
you have to really love what it is that you're doing. And it was interesting because you had just asked. One of the other things I love is water.
Okay.
My husband and I love to kayak, and we love to be out on the water. And when you're
What is it?
doing one, you can't do the other. So
True.
one is definitely, and that's why I didn't choose to talk about being in the water, because that's, my happy place. Because
I have to interrupt. Why?
sure,
Why is that your happy place?
peace, calm,
Okay.
quiet. I try not. I don't bring my phone, um, because it's a place where I can be,
Right.
where there's nothing else in my head. Well, there's nothing else there's nothing that has to be in my head, but
Right.
just appreciating what's around me. I'm able to, breathe the salt air or breathe the air, to the sun on my face, some
Mhm.
exercise out on, that's beautiful, and just enjoy being.
Okay. I like that. Thank you for that. Well, I think I'd like to do a slide into your business. Now, I
Okay.
do note, and I am confused. I was going to say, I'm not going to say I'm not confused, that I know in part you are a travel agent.
Yes, I am.
Okay, but then I saw the experiential entrepreneur. I have no idea what that means. Could you
Well,
elaborate?
it's very interesting, because it can mean anything that you want or need it to mean.
Right.
Um, because the things that I do are about experiences, whether
Okay.
it be travel. I specialize in romance travel, so it's destination weddings, honeymoons. Not that I don't do all kinds of travel,
Right.
but for me, anything that, again, I'm creating something, I'm creating an experience. So I look at every single client as a project. Even if
Okay.
I've booked the same hotel or the same resort 50 times, for the client, it's the first one. It's
Right.
their first experience. If it's a honeymoon, the hopes, and I tell my clients, this you've done this once. You're going to do this once with hope, and it should be what you've been dreaming about all your life.
Okay.
So I see it as as a project. Uh,
Hmm.
for other things that I'm involved in, other businesses that I'm involved in, it's all about the customer experience.
Okay.
So rather than putting, a list of 3 or 4 businesses that I'm involved in, everything that I do is an experience, because number one,
Okay.
it makes me happier.
Hmm.
It's about creativity. So there's something that another person who does, um, what I do, may look at it as something that they do all the time. It's the same thing that they repeat over and over, and that's great. That's
Hmm.
wonderful if you have a business where, you're able to do things. But for me, each of my clients is a project. I look at them as a
Okay.
project, and it's the way that I approach my day. It's the way that I approach my business. And I think that it's also why my clients come back to me or refer me, is because it's always about them, not about me.
Okay. What I'm hearing is, and I'm going to work backwards in my sequence, that what you said most recently, that when you say it's your project, each new customer or established customer, that I think of the metaphor of it's another knitting job for you, not job, another knitting endeavor. You spent much time dialoguing about why you like what you do. It defines who you are, your unique persona. I'll say it that manner. And I don't take it as from your perspective is okay. I'm going to do it. I need a sweater. I'm going to make a sweater. It's not enough for that. You make a sweater because it serves in part a unique, distinct function, but it has to be different than anybody else who might serve a garment. Won't be just sweaters, but in the same manner, you want to put your stamp on it in some subtle manner or clear manner. It's unique to me, so it's not likely I'm going to find what you make in a store. Now, by the way, when I'm rambling like this, if you say, "Hey, Joe, no, that's not the case," then feel free to make your point. I don't want to spend the whole half hour being completely off track on this. And also, what I'm seeing or noting in this dialogue is that you take it personal. You make it personal. It's not take it, you make it personal. That you keep, I now understand the concept of experiential. It's too many syllables for me to say it
I know
correctly.
it's very early in the morning, but it's very interesting that you say that because the tagline on my business card is I take your travel personally.
Okay,
So, because I do, for better or for worse. So, absolutely, because I find it, when somebody trusts you with such an important part of their day, of their year, I do take that personally.
good.
I feel that my clients deserve that, and it's getting the best of who I am.
I hear that. Now, I'm going to interject a counterpoint point that anybody can say, well, I take it personal. A generic phrase is, and I really care about my clients. Well, who doesn't care about their clients? Maybe many don't, but they will never admit to that. But your lifestyle, that when you're talking about making your sweaters, you do take it personal. And it's more than just talking about it, that you have several things in your mindset at the same time. It has to have value at the moment. We talk about functional value, perhaps. If, as you say, if it's a wedding, there's a value behind that. If it's a give me the best trip I've ever had or a unique trip, there's a sense behind that too. I think most people can make a claim that I take each client personal. What I've heard about you is you walk the talk. That even as a young girl, you said you began around 11ish, I think,
Hmm.
that you didn't do it for a while and then walked away from it. You saw this endeavor as something you can truly express yourself. You made a point that it's not enough simply to make something different. It has to also have value behind that difference, that it serves its purpose, but it serves it in a manner that you feel good about it and your client will feel good about it. Again, in walking the talk concept, I have to refer to my notes. I have a page and a half here, so I work
Oh
backwards.
goodness.
So when you take on a new client, you use the phrase, I've never heard anybody say, I'm taking on a new project. I know it's out there in the business lingo, but I don't hear people say, "Oh, I got a new client." No, I have a new project. And to me, a project implies way, way more than okay. You want to travel to Tahiti? How many days? What accommodations? Done. And I get the impression on how you've treated your knitting that you're going to really, really delve into the concept of what the person has in mind. You would, as opposed to, okay, check, 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 we're done. I suspect you would take it further. Have you considered? If I'm wrong again, let me know. That you introduce concepts of ideas maybe they hadn't thought about yet because it is a project for you, like your knitting that will meet the moment practically, important, but also it has to be creative. And I suspect the creative side of it may be more important than the functioning side of it, or at least equal par. I mean, I've seen people do things creative that nice, but there's not necessarily any practical value. Or people will be very pragmatic and it could be another thing hanging on the store shelf wherever you might go. So I suspect that you have a presence about yourself that when someone goes on a trip because of you, that it will be, oh, you must have gone to Robin, because that's the type of stuff she does. It's like making clothes or a certain style of dress. I'm a guy, so I can't get too deep off in that side of it and make any sense. But that's what I'm hearing about you and what you do. And in fact, to make it more of a personal observation, when we first began this program with you, that you did try to get an edge, or what do I talk about? You didn't quite say that, but you wanted to prepare yourself. You wanted, because you took seriously your volunteer to take the hot seat, and you wanted to be thorough with it. And I did not see that as a negative. Some people will ask because, well, if it's too much of a challenge, I'm not sure if I'm up to it. And that's okay. But clearly you are driven once you commit to something to do it to the best of your ability. It's not enough to put it together, it's enough to give it a personal flavor that fits your client, that fits you in a combined manner. And that takes the time to question and to give back and take. I said to the group when we first signed on that we had some glitches signing on. And I'm saying, well, we can do that later. And no, 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 I need to figure this out. Not many people would say that. Oh, geez, there's only 3 more minutes. I guess we'll stop and maybe next time. So I see when you focus down on getting the results you feel we ought to get is part of your program. Am I too far off so far?
No, and I think that you are spot on, because my feeling is, and I think some of it comes with the point in my career, my age, whatever, is that I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that every single thing that I do is totally unique, because that wouldn't be, the same way that I've knit many things that are like scarves and they serve the same function.
Hmm.
My whole thing is, if I'm going to work on something, you're right. I want to be able to put my stamp on it. On
Hmm.
the other side of that, there are also things that I won't do. And I feel that every once in a while, somebody will come to me and say, I want to go to this particular property in this particular place. And my line, and I also say it, is that if I wouldn't send my daughter, I
Hmm.
won't send my clients.
Okay.
And part of that is because it's about safety, it's about quality. That if somebody goes someplace or does something that I recommend and it's not up to my standard,
Hmm.
they're going to come back to me and say, we went, it was terrible. How could you send
Hmm.
us there? How could you make us wear an itchy sweater? How could you make us wear, it was too warm, it was too cold? So that's what I mean when I say I take it personally, is that
Right.
if I wouldn't send my child, who's not such a child, but if I
Hmm.
wouldn't send somebody that's that important to me, then I won't send my clients.
Okay. That sounds good. And let me look at my notes again. And also, what you noted too was in terms of when you design your sweaters, when you make them, that you want to not get routine. That's the best way to say it. If you don't want to be bored of what you're doing. So not only does it have a function, but again, you're always pushing yourself to increase the value of what you're doing to keep your attention or uniqueness. And they're almost the same thing. Value, unique value. Let's say that as one hyphenated word. And so I'm going to make an assumption that if I were to come to you when we travel big time, that I'll say to you, oh, let me say this differently. I don't know how many people take the time, travel agents, what do you really want to accomplish here? They might ask, and if I'm wrong on this, again, where do you want to go? How long? What's your budget? I assume that's part of the standard question format. Am I right or wrong on that? That many.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I think that I don't want to make it sound like that I'm doing something. I'm doing what I feel everybody should be doing, and most of my colleagues will do some of that. I have a
Right.
tendency to take it to another level, for better or for worse. Most of the
Hmm.
destination weddings that I've done, the couple says, we're not getting married without you. And I
Mm.
end up being at the wedding. I don't do, I don't do so many of them that I can't. They've become my friends. I do their honeymoon, their first trip with their children. So it becomes, I get to know their families. So it's one big love fest. And
Right.
and it's not, I'm not saying that it's the right thing for everybody. I'm not even saying that it's always the right thing for me,
Hmm.
because when you're that involved, um, there's a personal responsibility as well. Because I don't just say it. I had a client very recently who the was graduating from high school,
Hmm.
and his dream was to be at the top of the world in Norway. And we spent a year and a half working on this trip for him. It was amazing. And
Hmm.
the day that they left, the Norwegian airline went on strike.
Oh
So
my,
they were now in Norway with no way to get home.
my.
So I spent the 12 days or 13, 14 days that they were away every single day on the phone with them, navigating and trying to figure out how to make this experience what he wanted it to be, with
Right.
tremendous roadblocks. So
Hmm.
that's the other side of taking something personally, that you got to, walk the walk as well.
Right. And I gathered that from our beginning this morning when we were kind of having some glitchy episodes, and I was offering a discrete mechanism. Well, we can back off from this. No, no, no. We need to work through this. We need to make it happen. And I got that concept. So, in summary, I guess what I see is a person who commits to herself, that you're passionate about what you do, but also functional in what you do. When you made the comments about oftentimes the families would ask you to be a part of the wedding, the first trip. Now, I don't know how often travel agents get that type of invite. I suspect not very often, but it tells me that quality over quantity works better for you. And I think you probably increasingly will develop a very distinct clientele who appreciates, I'll say, the old fashioned way of human on human value, as opposed to churn out 8 trips per day. That would be nice, I guess, but it's not quite the same thing as I see it. The quality over the quantity concept. And I'm assuming you're not, I'm going to say comfortable. I hate the word comfortable because it implies complacency, but I would say competent. And your confidence comes in behind that. When I hear you talk about what you do, most people are sometimes hesitant because they're trying to figure out, what should I say that sounds good, and you flow with it. I give you the question and you think about it momentarily to make sure you understand it well, and that says a lot about your listening skill. And because I can be off the wall sometimes, and then you will give an answer that embellishes the question unasked even. And again, am I far off on that, or is that fairly close to who you are,
No,
the person?
it is, and it's interesting because I have, my logo up in the back, and there are multiple things that I'm involved in, as we've discussed. And even though this is what it may say on this particular business card, the other projects that I'm involved in all kind of circle around project. And you're right. Coming from a theater background, I'm part of a team. A stage is
Hmm.
part of a team, and I love being part of a team, which is so interesting because when you look at my pastime, it's very singular because there's only two hands that are in a project.
I hear
So
that. I'm gonna interrupt if I can with the minute
yeah.
and a half we have left. You mentioned the two birds behind you. What are those birds? And I understand you like them. What's that all about?
So they are robins. So the robin s robins, plural,
Ah.
because again, it's not only about me. Um, and the lovely thing, my daughter, who is a graphic designer, created the logo. So she
Hmm.
created those birds for me, and I find that I have beanie babies that look very similar to that from a million years ago. I have the robins, of course,
Right.
and I take them with me whenever I travel, and they appear in different places.
Hmm.
So my clients, when they sign a contract, will take a picture with my birds. So
Interesting.
so in perpetuity, they're never going to
Hmm.
change. Their hair is always going to look good, and I'll always feel comfortable. And there's something about the lovebirds and about the color, and I get to take my daughter with me everywhere I go
Hmm.
because we created the logo together.
Okay. Well, it tells me you're very, very proud about your legacy that you walk. It's a living legacy. I'll say it like that. You take it to heart. We've hit our 30 minutes. Boy, that zipped by. Folks, remember to leave your comments. Remember, you can watch this after the fact on the rerun mode. Remember to share with people you know. And if you'd like to be part of this podcast, please click one of the links below. More importantly, if you'd like to learn more about Robin, feel free to contact her. She's got links below to click too. I'm Joe Wesley. Thank you again to Robin for taking your hot seat challenge for success.
And thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. We're going to end now, folks.